This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. The Middle Ground Mic is fighting for truth and unity. Subscribe now or support us today. Links are in the notes. Stand with us. Hey, everybody, it's Joe from the Middle Ground Mic. I want to remind you to sign up for our newsletter at themiddlegroundmic.com/newsletter. It covers episodes coming up for the week and different materials in between, and you get a little bit of a preview of what could be coming up next. All right, let's dig into it. Michigan finally passed this new state budget. You know what actually happened, right? After months of fighting back and forth, lawmakers have finally approved an $81 billion budget for the next year. It covers everything from school, roads, healthcare, public safety, and yes, your tax dollars fuel all of it, which, if you didn't know, that's how government works. The state barely made the deadline. They had to pass a short extension to keep the lights on, per se, at the start of October, but they got it done for now. Well, let's talk about the schools, one of the most important ones to all of us, right? Here's where your money's going. The per student funding, that's the main money schools get for each kid, went up to $10,050 per student, up from about $9,600 last year. Free school meals are staying. Every kid in public school can get breakfast and lunch without worrying about the cost or qualifying paperwork. There's $320 million going toward mental health programs and school safety upgrades. We do need more mental health. We need to teach these kids not how to coddle themselves, but we need to teach them how to handle things properly so that they can function and deal with adversity that is going to happen in life. Altogether, Michigan schools are getting $21.3 billion. That's the most we've ever seen in our state's history. So Republicans and Democrats were able to come together to fuel education, and not just fuel it for things in education we don't need. They're going after certain problems. And it's like I said in another episode about healthcare, states are going to address the issues a lot better than the federal government can. Look at it. They're putting money into mental health. They're making sure kids are getting free meals. It's not free. It all comes with tax dollars, right? But they're making sure this is done at the state level. This is important, and this is for parents that could mean more staff, possibly smaller class sizes, depending on the district, or better programs. If you're like me, you got a kid with special needs, this helps ensure the things that he needs, right? But as always, how it's used is dependent upon your local district. And we'll track that in the newsletter over the next week. We'll see if there's anything in particular that sticks out to us. In roads and bridges, where the rubber finally meets the road, like the governor says, fix the damn roads. Really, yeah, let's actually fix the damn roads, not fix the same one 5,000 times. Because if you live in Michigan, you've hit a pothole that's probably older than your car. Or the state's trying a few new ways to fund repairs, right? So there's a 24% wholesale tax on marijuana starting in January. That's expected to raise about $400 million a year just for infrastructure. Now, I'm generally against tax increases, right? But this isn't coming after your paycheck. This is an optional purchase. This isn't something people are required to live. I know some people use it for medical reasons, things like that, but this is an optional purchase for most people. So this isn't going to go after the people that can't afford things right now. This isn't really hurting them in the pocket as much, right? But they're going to get the money they need to fix the roads. The people that need it the most, like financially at the, middle lower class, they don't have to come out of pocket directly. They make the choice to buy those products. Second, part of the corporate income tax, around $700 million this year, growing to $1 billion by 2030, is being redirected straight to the roads. Locally, $10 million is going to the West Road Bridge project in Trenton, something downriver folks have been waiting on for years. The Allen and Van Horn Bridge. Well, the West Road Bridge too. They both are getting money. So if all that sounds like progress, it is. But the question is always, with progress, when the money turns into actual construction, the cost overruns. What safeguards are put in place to protect our tax dollars to actually make sure something's getting fixed? That's key, right? To make sure that our tax dollars are getting used for something that's important, something that we need, and that it's not being abused. Let's kind of look a little bit at, taxes in your paycheck, which this was kind of a hot button issue last summer that Trump had started about no tips on taxes and overtime, or on overtime and Social Security. My apologies. So the budget does have some relief for working people and retirees. Tips, overtime pay, and Social Security are getting temporary tax breaks. Temporary. So If you're wondering what that means, it means when the next election cycle is really starting to kick in gear this time next year, they're all going to be digging their heels in, trying to get their way to get you to sway your vote. A temporary tax break is nothing but kicking the can down the road for a political fight that they're going to use to get elected, no matter which side it is. This change is going to cost the state about $188 million a year in lost revenue, but it's designed to give the regular folks a little breathing room, which they do need right now, especially with inflation. And especially with a good chance that our governor is probably going, not our governor, but the commission and this AG, they're probably going to allow another rate hike on your gas and electric. I mean, they're probably going to allow it. So I don't ever want to hear any of them in that realm of space say, oh, we're against corporate America for the middle guy. Yeah, your actions have said differently. Well, so if you're busting tail in the service industry or living on a fixed income, this can mean a few more dollars staying in your pocket to help cover some of those costs. What got cut or what got changed? Of course, you can't add without subtracting somewhere and having a balanced budget, even if you raise taxes, depending on the situation. Here's what got trimmed. The state is eliminating about 1,700 job positions. But don't worry, they were mostly unfilled ghost jobs sitting on paper. What ghost jobs mean is it's just a job that they didn't hire anybody for. That's just been sitting there. Big corporate giveaway programs like the SOAR Fund, those huge incentive packages for companies were paused for this year. Those are corporate tax breaks that essentially you pay for the factory to be built. You're paying for part of the salaries of the workers, though it doesn't say that. We all know how money works. And then when all that dries up, some of them dip out of town. Pure Michigan tourism ads and workforce training programs got small cuts, but survived overall. So no massive layoffs, but definitely a bit of tightening up in Lansing, which sometimes has to happen, right? We're due for an economic slowdown. It has to happen. Inflation has to come down. Rates have to get cut. These things have to happen in order for us to have some kind of balance and be able and hope to be able to afford something in the future. We needed to be able to afford things in the future. We have to let wages catch up a little bit more. We have to slow down inflation. And this is a good place to start, right? Because government budgets really help inflation, even federal and locally. But what both sides are saying, right? Here's where it gets political, of course, but I'll keep it real. Democrats are calling this a people first budget focused on kids, schools, and safety. Republicans are saying it's a win for fiscal responsibility. Less waste, more accountability, and fewer corporate handouts. And you know what? Both have a point. At least this time they managed to work together enough to pass something balanced. Not perfect, but not a disaster either. And it's not going to riddle future generations with massive amounts of debt. And it addressed some of our most critical needs that we have in this state. What we need to watch about this going forward is she could still veto it or tweak some parts. Doesn't sound like she's going to, but you never know. The marijuana tax, are prices going to jump? I would imagine so. 24% hike. I don't know many companies that could absorb that without raising the price on their products. Local road projects. Will that downriver bridge and others actually get fixed and built? Or will it just be talk? Well, I can say they're at least starting prep, whatever it is, for the Allen and Van Horn Bridge over there. If you live there, hey, I mean, at least I see it sometimes when I drive by there. So I think it's, that's happening. They did do Gibraltar Road down by my house finally after a gajillion years, it feels like. And roads where barely anybody travels on in this area got fixed somehow before one of the main roads in the area. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure there's a rhyme or reason behind it, but I probably won't agree with it. In the school spending, we'll see if that record education funding really hits classrooms where it's needed. We need to cut back on administration and education. When you compare to our comparable European, every industrialized society, we are way too top heavy. That money that is top heavy could go right back into teacher salaries, adding to the classrooms, expanding classrooms, supplies, you name it. But everybody's here going to find 10 reasons why we need those people. Here's the thing. We're ranked in the 20s for education now? You get over there, they don't have all that administration and they're winged. So obviously something we're doing isn't working. Not saying we have to copy their model necessarily, but one of their big focuses is they're not top heavy. We're going to be tracking all this every week on the show, every Sunday, and breaking it down in plain English, not this political mumbo jumbo. So you don't need a political science degree to understand it. You can at least get some middle of the road thought. My personal thoughts are in this budget, kind of summing it up is, a lot of things are balanced, which we always need. finding the middle, right? They found the middle and they got something done. The one thing I wish they would have done is I really liked how Rick Snyder did it when he was governor, 2-year budgets. I think it provided a lot more stability. It gave people more of a chance. But hey, that's not how our current government chooses to do it, and that's her right to do so. And the legislature obviously didn't push the issue either. But they did the right thing. They're not saddling future generations with debt. The state budget should be balanced. Things are getting repaired, built in the communities, kids are getting taken care of. But I can't stress enough, just dumping money on education doesn't solve the problem. Parents, if you get involved, if you're able to, find somebody that can get involved, find somebody that can advocate for you, do these things, get involved, make sure your kids are getting the education you need. Don't just blindly trust people to give you the education or to give your kids the education. Get involved as much as you can. I know a lot of us are busy. I'm not involved as much as I would love to be. I got a great wife who handles a lot of that for me. And I try to be present when it's something super critical, super important. I wish I could be more involved, but work and things like that. So take that stuff seriously, right? Get involved with your kids. Make sure that that money that you're going to be paying out of your taxes actually goes to help your children. To me, that's just key. Common sense, how you want to put it. I'll toss a little bit in here. That's something that was very disappointing to me. The UFL announced today, or is it yesterday, that they are moving the Michigan Panthers out of Michigan, so no one become the Michigan Panthers. Well, I'm probably still turning on if it's on. I'm bored, but the Michigan Panthers had one of the higher turnouts. Find a smaller stadium somewhere in the state, like down in Metro Detroit. I get it's not your perfect thing, but there's a lot of options. A lot. You're just being jerks about it. I'm sorry, but it was a jerk move. One of your most popular teams in the league, when they give the Jake Bates thing out, 16,000 people? One of your highest attendance, and you're going to move a team? Get out of here. What a jerk move. I'm sorry. It just is. The business doesn't add up either for doing that. Like when you look at it just doesn't add up. Panthers are one of your best teams. And if you think all those fans are going to follow it, sadly mistaken. But also let's talk about, the Tigers, they eliminated the Guardians. The Red Wings so far are looking okay. And the Lions, man, 3-1. And they destroyed the Browns. They destroyed the Ravens. They decimated the Bears, even though they got their tails kicked by the Packers. But hey, tomorrow they take on the Bengals, who don't have Joe Burrow. So it should be another pretty darn good day for our Lions. Let's go, Lions. And at the end of the day, let's kind of sum all this up. Sports and everything, the Michigan budget, it's talking about our values, right? It's taking care of kids, investing in the roads. It's not perfect. No budget, especially from a government, ever is, but it's progress. And this is what I talk about when I talk about finding the middle ground. Neither side got completely what it wanted, but when it came down to it, they were able to get it done. They got it done despite partisan differences. This is what we need in Washington. This is what voters at the state level need to demand from their U.S. House and senators. You need to demand that kind of like bipartisan, getting it done. Like you need to demand it from your representatives. Do not give them an option. Pressure them, email them, whatever, nothing crazy or stupid or violent or anything, but like pressure them. They owe that to you. That's their job. Most of them are bad people, but they really need to know, hey, if people in Michigan and most of these states can find a balanced budget and get the things that the constituents wants done, then you're not truly doing what the constituents want, and we need to figure out why and how we can fix it. And that's what finding the middle is all about. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and again, join our newsletter at themiddlegroundmic.com/newsletter so you can know what's coming up each week. From the Sunday edition here in Michigan to quick hits and T-shirt Tuesdays, big national interviews every Wednesday and Friday, because at the Middle Ground Mic, we don't do left or right, forward. And we just talk about what actually affects you. Have a good day, everybody.